Look at all these movies. I've watched these dozens of times. Maybe I should pick something good for once.
Hello, Relic. I want to play a game. For years, you've watched terrible made-for-TV movies on the SyFy channel. Today, I want you to review one such movie. Category 8. It is a 2-part movie. You will start with Night 1.
Oh god, this is one of those natural disaster movies, isn't it? Ah, son of a bitch it is!
Something like that. Enjoy.
Alright, let's get this over with. Time to watch Category 8. So, to start off with, Category 8 was made in 2013 and was directed by Kevin Fair. I'm not expecting much since, well, it's sci-fi. The basic premise of the film is this. A government science experiment goes awry and blasts the sun's magnetosphere with electromagnetic energy. The sun freaks out and sends a surge of solar flares and coronal mass ejections towards the Earth, threatening to destroy human civilization. Oh yeah, it's going to be bad. But is it going to be a bad movie? For background purposes, I'm a science guy. I have a deep love and appreciation for astronomy and solar science. I've taken a lot of classes on the subject, and I keep up with all the new space missions and toys. I want to get the Curiosity rover when it comes out. Should be in a couple of weeks. As such, I know this movie is going to piss me off. Well, time to see how high my blood pressure gets. So here we see Dr. Michael Ranger, played by Matthew Modine. He's our hero, so get used to seeing a lot of him. He's been in a number of well-known films, from Full Metal Jacket to The Dark Knight Rises, in addition to TV series such as Weeds and The Bedford Diaries. He's late for a museum speech and has to go. The next scene goes to the White House, where, naturally, the government is up to no good. Now, why is it that every single military scene has to be accompanied by drum rolls? I know it's kind of a long-standing tradition, but it feels so stereotypical, and I wish they would use something else for it. There's some exposition with the project. The scientists are making a presentation to the president and his VP about their project, a global defense system that harnesses the unlimited power of the sun.
In 2010, our high-frequency disruptor...
Dr. Jane Whitlow, played by Maxim Roy, explains the process with the help of her awesome holographic table. This little guy can display anything, including unplanned events. Now that's some hardware. Seems a bit complicated for a Star Wars project, considering the appreciable lag time, but hey, it's science fiction. And sci-fi, so what's stopping them?
Mr. President, the unlimited power of the sun has now armed us against any oncoming threat, be it a rogue missile, satellite, or asteroid. For the purpose of this test, we've chosen one of our decommissioned communication satellites.
It works as planned and destroys the defunct satellite, just before the weapon itself gets damaged and blows its electromagnetic load into the sun.
Master system failure. The satellite's emptying its energy banks.
Where? What's it targeting?
The sun.
Shut it down now!
Okay, let's just stop here for a second. This isn't the first mistake they've made, but it's a big one. You see the size of this CNP beam? Keep that in mind for a moment and check out this picture. Now, the pictures aren't quite on the same scale, but the beam is about the size of the Earth. It's big enough to then sweep across the surface of the sun. Suffice to say, that would be enough power to toast the Earth something fierce. I'll get back to this in a bit.
What the hell's going on?
Our satellite just triggered a solar storm.
How big?
Peter, status.
Oh, hell. Looks like the first solar flare is an X-class.
You have the right to speak to an attorney.
We get some filler next, with one of the more useless characters, Officer Tim Davis, played by Spiro Malodrakis. He serves as filler since they had to make the first part an hour and a half long. I don't necessarily mind filler in TV shows, but it's just one of those things that you see all the time in TV, especially in made-for-TV movies. Bad ones at that. They have an A-plot and a B-plot, and they kind of interchange between the two as the story goes along to pad the runtime. I mean, they had to make the movie an hour and a half somehow, right?
anyone know?
Next, we meet Dr. Ranger's daughter, Karen. She's played by Kalinka Petrie.
Even my baby brother knows that.
She'll serve as dead weight.
Thank you, Sam. Let's pick up the pace.
She's followed by Dr. Ranger's ex-wife, Beverly, played by Kate Drummond. We also meet Beverly's father, former Governor William Danville, played by Francis McCarthy. During this, the first solar flare strikes the Earth, and apparently has enough energy to cause an earthquake. We're treated to some inventive camera shaking as buildings collapse and break. A plane plummets from the sky and crashes near Beverly, with no survivors. Mike seems to immediately know that it was a solar flare that caused it because of a single dead bird. Cool.
We just got hit by a solar flare.
We cut to Dr. Whitlow explaining what happened.
Could have been worse.
How the hell does a solar flare cause an earthquake?
Its impact on the outer atmosphere had the energy of 1 billion megatons of TNT.
1 billion megatons of TNT. 1 billion.
That's billion! Buh! That's Carl Sagan billion with a B!
Now, I've done some research on this. You know what that equivalent is? That's the size of the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs some 66 million years ago. When that thing hit us, it created tidal waves that were 3 miles high, sent clouds of superheated particulates into the air, and ejected enough mass out into the atmosphere such that, when it came back in, it broiled the Earth. Yeah, that's a big one. And that's not even counting the global earthquakes and the volcanic eruptions that the shockwave of this thing caused. Yeah, that's a big thing. To put it bluntly, we'd be fucked. But, does a solar flare contain that much power? Solar flares are categorized in terms of energy output. You have B-class, C-class, M-class, and X-class solar flares. Each class represents a roughly 10-fold increase in power output. On November 4, 2003, NASA recorded the solar flare that exceeded the sensors at X17. They later estimated it to be at least an X45. That's a massive solar flare. And it hit us. It really did. But how much damage did that actually do? What are the effects of an X45? It sounds pretty damn scary, doesn't it? Well, according to NASA, the Earth would be subjected to radiation storms that could potentially harm satellites, and airplane travelers might be subjected to small radiation doses. If you're on the space station, you might be in trouble. There'd be transmission problems and rolling blackouts around the world, but, we'd still be here. It'd be inconvenient, but it's really not that big of a deal, and we've been hit by these things frequently. Coronal mass ejection sounds fucking frightening, doesn't it? It sounds like it's going to hit us with some sort of superheated plasma and roast our cosmic fuckernauts and astrobastards, right? Well, what happens is this. The Earth spits out a plasma of electrons and protons, and a teeny tiny amount of heavier elements like oxygen and helium. What happens is that the Earth gets hit on the impact side, and the magnetosphere compresses on the day side where we get hit. And on the night side, the magnetosphere elongates, like this. So it kind of looks like a bit of, not quite a teardrop, but something like an ellipsoid, an oval. So yeah, mass ejections sound frightening as hell, but they're actually really cool events. Now, let's get back to the movie. Nerd! Naturally, the military wants to keep the information quiet, so they attempt to suppress knowledge of what caused it.
We are the only ones who know what caused this thing. And for the good of this country, I believe it's important that it stay that way.
Despite the fact that, every country with radio equipment would have noticed the power surge.
We have a population to protect. Understood?
Shortly afterward, the first storm sweeps the planet and knocks satellites out of their orbits. This doesn't happen.
Solar flares?
They're knocking satellites out of orbit. Fast.
5 seconds to impact.
An M-class solar flare. We might feel this one.
Great.
Apparently, the satellites will remain intact as they plummet back to the surface, too.
Satellites at risk. They're desperate.
How many satellites are designed to burn up completely upon re-entry?
A few smaller models will disintegrate, but the average communication satellite weighs 5 tons. The bulk of it will stay intact.
So almost 3,500 satellites are at risk of becoming fireballs?
Technically over 10,000 if you include non-operational.
So the happy family gets back together for some more drama. Ranger doesn't like the cop, who happens to be his daughter's boyfriend.
Officer Davis. What's with all this stuff? Why don't you make yourself useful? Sure.
Jack, I'm so glad you're home.
As it turns out, there's some tension between Mike, Beverly and Beverly's new husband, Jack.
What's the inside scoop, Jack?
It's a solar storm. A bad one, but we've seen it before. 48 hours tops and everything moves back to normal.
Ranger and Davis decide to go off and get supplies and a generator. We finally get to see some destruction porn as dozens of satellites rain down upon London like hellfire, or meteors. Take your pick.
Contact at the space station coming up now.
It turns out that everyone on the International Space Station is dead, but somehow it's still broadcasting.
Transmission.
All the satellites in lower to mid-orbit are shutting down, including the space station. It's the size of a football field, Brian.
That should disintegrate.
The fancy holographic computer shows that it's going to be pushed out of orbit and will hit Chicago with the force of a nuclear blast and will wipe out the city.
Compromised electromagnetic field. It's gonna hit the Earth like a nuclear blast.
Notice that during the supposed massive flare, the lights still work. This is one of those glaring flaws of the movie. It's all inconsistent. The director can't decide if the electricity works or not, so he just changes it up every time he feels like it, which happens to be every scene.
Dad? Tim?
Ranger and Davis decide to make a detour and break into the military base to access some kind of MacGuffin, and they quickly get captured once they sneak in. They're held in what looks like a chicken coop in the middle of the room until somebody comes by for them and eventually releases them in the orders from Dr. Whitlow.
Hello, Michael.
Come on, Peter, I need a location.
The destruction of Chicago requires no less than 36 satellites hitting the city at once, but we never see the actual ISS hit. I'm actually really pissed off about that. They promised this earth-shattering kaboom and then they utterly failed to deliver it. What the hell? I want a refund.
That's the sunspot we created with the ion beam. It's now 100,000 kilometers from end to end. 4 times bigger than the Earth.
So what's it gonna do? Emit another X-class solar flare?
No. It's going to be a giant cloud of magnetized radioactive particles. The biggest coronal mass ejection we've ever seen.
The sun isn't quite finished yet, as it belches out a gigantic fireball of a coronal mass ejection. The end of life is declared as the ozone will burn off with the impact.
Mr. President, global threat levels now at Category 7. The imminent destruction of all human life.
You made it?
Operation Haven is a top-secret project, years in the making, designed for a crisis such as this. It's a network of underground facilities throughout the U.S. connected directly to the White House bunker, which will also serve as Haven's communication center. There's only room for 150,000 people.
Here we go. They rip off Deep Impact with the whole, "a few will be saved." Also, notice the power's still on. Make up your mind.
What was that?
Tim taught me.
They make a break for the base again once the military starts evacuation orders. Man, the military sure is quick to mobilize in this movie.
We override the safety systems. Bypass the polarity condensers.
The whole idea for them is to try and jerry-rig the antenna array by hardwiring the generators together.
Daisy chain each of those generators together. Can you do that? Daisy chain them.
So, they're supposed to be daisy-chained together. Luckily for them, all the generators have daisy-chain sockets and the daisy chains are sitting right there. Wonderful! This is awesome! The pulse of the satellite is supposed to release a gigawatt of power.
It's gonna release a gigawatt of power whether we're connected or not.
1.21 gigawatts. Great Scott!
They rig it together just in time for the power to flow. Sparks fly as all hell breaks loose, but the power still works, naturally.
Special beam cannon Show me what you got.
Apparently Eris is hard at work as we get to see her life stream trail across the Earth. So we're almost at the end of episode 1. Now here comes the really big what the fuck moment as far as story goes. The government guy seems to really hate Ranger for some reason. So much so that he sends a military SWAT team to go capture him at his trailer. They don't explain this. Maybe they will in part 2, but who knows. Explain!
Wow.
The magnetosphere is messed up beyond repair, and apparently starts failing as we see Aurora Borealis in Chicago, or is that Boston? I really don't know at this point. We leave off with the worst yet to come. Now, so far, it's alright. I've seen far worse sci-fi movies. This one's at least watchable, but it has some really bad nerd rage-inducing moments. I'm kinda sad to say that I'm a little bit curious to see how it actually ends, so I guess I'll watch Night 2. It's a train wreck of a film, but I'm kind of curious to see how this piece of crap finishes. Stay tuned for Night 2, and thank you for watching.